Hi, everybody. Today is Thursday, June 25th. Um, my name is Michael Fisk. For those who have not, joined us before, Doug Gonzalez. Hi. We'll wait just a quick second here, for people to be able to get logged in. Um, if you have any issues seeing or hearing or anything yet, just let me know. But again, I'm a one man, shop on this as I am doing this from home. But also, the standard pre-safety message: if you're driving, please, don't watch this while you're driving. This will be recorded and saved on here on Facebook as well as our YouTube channel. So feel free to watch it at a later time. Um, if you have questions or comments or anything, feel free to go and send them in. I mean, it's I think I'm able to get to and find the questions, pretty well. When when you wait to the end to send in questions, there's often a couple of minute delay. So I may have ended the session. We've had that, concern and that complaint before that, hey, I didn't answer your question. Well, if you wait to the very end, like I said, there's often like a delay of some sort, a minute or two, and I may not have even seen the question. And if I didn't answer it, I probably didn't see it at all. So if you have something on your mind, feel free to send it in, and we'll get to it for sure. So. Um, Miguel Escalante, Kathleen, Jack McFadden, John Steffi, Suzanne, Favor, David Ransom, hello from Arkansas, Carrie Manguson, hi. Um, so I don't have, a whole lot of stuff to go over. I mean, a lot of it's just kind of the same stuff. I mean, COVID-19 is still raging. Arizona and Missouri or particularly Joplin, are considered, hotspot areas, right now. Once again, it's who knows, where this will go, where the trends are. Not going to comment on the politics of, wearing a mask and not wearing a mask. But Maricopa County, which is Phoenix resides in, for example, the entire county. If you're out in public, you have to have a face covering, and if you don't, then you can be subject to, I think it's a $50 fine for the first offense, type of thing. So as customers require it, and certain cities and municipalities and states or whatever require it, it's not necessarily a choice. We need to comply. What you do on your own personal time, what you do on your home time, it's up to you. But while we're representing the company and while we're representing Tri-State, we do need to comply with the regulations of the local municipalities. So the vest is back, yes, Suzanne. I mean, it's 111 degrees out, I think, but I wear the vest when I'm feeling fat. And so, it's kind of covers that up a little bit, there. So thanks for pointing that out, Suzanne. Okay, there is, something in particular that I do want to talk about, and listen. Feel free to send in comments and questions. Okay, on this, I think it's going to be a little bit sensitive and a little bit controversial, but nonetheless, it is something that has to be addressed. Social media, and we're going to be sending out emails, reinforcing our social media standards and policies. Whether you have a DoD clearance or not, we are all subject to DoD policies. Particularly if you have a DoD clearance, a secret clearance. I mean, there's extra scrutiny, on your social media. But even those that do not have a clearance, there is a company social media policy. Um, and I want to start out by acknowledging, hey, listen, we understand that Facebook and your social media is often one of your for a driver, it's a very isolated and very lonely world, that you exist in. I mean, many of us are working from home, and there is a feeling of isolation, that we're all understanding, better, that each of you, work with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it's there are many. Of of the office personnel that's been working from home the last 3 or 4 months, and at first they loved it, and at first the idea of working from your pajamas and everything seems great. But we are seeing more and more that there is a emotional and mental health component to being so isolated. And that's something that's not new to you drivers, and but this is something that's new to many in the office personnel. And I think they're getting a greater appreciation of what that kind of isolation feels like. Several of you guys, will recall that I got a little emotional, a month or two ago when our driver Elvin Ramey passed away. And it's not so much that I knew Elvin, so much personally. I knew him personally, over the years, and it's not so much that I was, burdened and saddened by, personally, by his passing. What really got to me was just the loneliness, that he must have been experiencing. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone to pass away without friends and family. Well, I mean, we're all going to die. We're all going to to move on from this world. And it's I think it's something that we all in our minds, we're surrounded by our loved ones and friends and family, and Elvin Ramey was not. And it was that loneliness, that sense of that really hit me in that moment. Well, that's something that each of you, all truck drivers, are faced with. And I understand that social media is your way to connect. I understand that social media is your way to vent. I understand that social media is a way to, in many ways, a very productive and healthy tool. Nonetheless, it's also can be heavy, and I have to take breaks from Facebook. It's just there's just too much, that's just too heavy sometimes. Well, many of you don't have that luxury of just separating yourself from Facebook, or other social media platforms while you're out on the road. Otherwise, you would not have much of a connection, to the world at large. And so and Daniel, Ginger, Norad, it's an outlet for some time to distress. I get it, and so I understand the value, that social media and Facebook, has. At the same time, I'm asking each of you to be cautious and aware. I mean, it's HR and I had to deal with a situation this past weekend, where a non-affiliated person saw a comment that one of our drivers made and took offense to it. And again, I understand those that feel like, hey, the world's becoming too politically correct, that the world is too sensitive, and the world is, overreacting, to, whether it, be the riots or the protests or COVID or, any number of things. It's very, very political, in the world, that we live in here. And I'm not commenting on any of that. What I am commenting on, though, is as you participate and engage in Facebook and social media, be careful. Okay. I mean, be aware of certain words that are inflammatory, be aware of certain terms that are inflammatory. I don't have time. I don't have the interest, in monitoring Facebook and I promise you that we don't have anybody policing, what you're posting and what the memes are, and so forth. but I do probably 5 to 10 times a week, get somebody either as another employee or more times than not, someone's not completely affiliated with the company sending me a screenshot, and says, hey, is this what your company stands for? Is this what represent, as a workforce? There. I've seen some memes that, I, it's just not okay. It's not appropriate, and I've seen some posts, where, out of frustration, I mean, I know the driver, that's posting it, and they're not, a violent person. They're not a negative person, but they wrote something that, was pretty heavy and pretty inflammatory, and pretty, is suggestive, of something that's not them, innately, regarding violence and so forth. As John shared, some several weeks ago when he did, the Facebook Live, and what I've shared, via email and this platform, we do have a zero tolerance for unnecessary violence. I mean, it's and I got messages. Well, what if I have to defend myself? And are you saying that the company doesn't, support the Second Amendment rights and everything? I'm not getting into any of that. Okay, I mean, it's what our company policy is to, have a zero tolerance towards racial injustice, and towards, violent acts, that can be avoided and are unnecessary. Um, and so that's what I want to caution. Is you know filter yourself. I mean, before you hit send, before you hit post, I mean, make sure, that that's something that you're going to be comfortable. If you're under a, security audit, I mean, it's we know for sure that the Department of Defense monitors, Facebook, postings. Several years ago, we had a driver post something, and within about 2 hours or so, the Department of Defense contacted us and said, "Hey, this is not okay, and this driver has to be terminated." There, and we had to do that. And so it's be aware. I mean, don't jeopardize your career, don't jeopardize your relationships. I mean, it's I'm not, once again, given a list of what this is what you can say and what you cannot say. But just be aware, of how this, what you post on social media, can affect your fellow coworkers, but can also more, affect yourself personally in your career, if it's, construed in a way that, can be harmful, there. So, I don't know that I have much more guidance, to offer, from that, but, let me look at some comments here real quickly. Joseph Lapuma, turn off location tags on Facebook too. I think that's a good idea. Particularly those of you that are doing, the DoD freights. I think that's, good advice. And Joseph, don't say where you are. Again, we're going to be resending everybody, the social media standards and policies, which, talks about location tracking, or what have not. Mark saying, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, said never criticize, condemn, or complain. And I think that's right. But in our weak moments, we all do it, right? In our moments of frustration and in our moments of I've just had enough, I mean, we all participate in that, and so, we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to, all, do things. We're going to do things that we regret once in a while, but we just can't cross a line, where we can't recover, from that regret. And the situation we had this weekend, we were able to resolve it, through some sensitivity training, and so forth. And if any of you feel like you have questions about what's okay in this day and age and what's not, I mean, standards have changed, and we are in a quote unquote cancel culture where something you say 30 years ago comes back and bites you today. And again, we can't change the past, but I think it is, important and would be, valuable for each of us to be aware of what what the general community standards of the world are today, and how do we engage into that world, and so if any of you would like to voluntarily go through our sensitivity training, we do have it available online, and so forth. And I'll be candid, some of you are going to be required to go through that training. But for anybody who just wants to do it for their own self knowledge, we're happy to share that with you as well. So, um, Kathleen Burrell, I saw your question about the scorecards. I'm not ignoring that. I'll get back to that for sure. There, but any other thoughts or comments or questions about our social media policy, or if you want to express frustration with what I'm sharing today, please do so. I mean, let's make this a forum, to kind of share those thoughts, type of thing. But at the end of it all, just know that I understand where these come from. We understand where these come from. We understand that oftentimes it's not meant, in a malicious way, but sometimes intent, doesn't matter if the wrong, content, is out there. Donnie Lester, he and I are going to be sending out a message together. You'll probably get it tomorrow, clarifying, some of this. But he got some more guidelines from the Department of Defense, regarding social media. And there are specific things, that if you say or post can trigger a personal audit, of your background, even if you already have an existing clearance, for example. And when that happens, as I understand what I'm reading here, it's possible that your clearance could be, put into an adjudication, status, which means you no longer have a clearance while they're going through this personal audits. And based on certain keywords, anti-government, racially motivated hate speech, et cetera, those things, according to the DOD social media standards, have to be reported, number one. But number two, when it's investigated, you will temporarily, if not permanently, lose your clearance. And then they start, investigating, deeper into, whether you have an association, yourself or with persons that advocates, use of force or violence or illegal means. We have several drivers, with a security clearance, but because they have something in their background, base commanders won't allow them on the base, even though they have a clearance, and oftentimes those things are associated with, violence or threats of violence, this very much has a real impact, on your security clearance, of how you exercise your rights. I mean, you have the right to say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean, that you have a right to be free from the consequences, unfortunately. And one of the things on here is, it's talking about government overthrowing or retribution for perceived wrongs by the government, those kind of things. But another point on the list here is, if you're posting things that prevent others from exercising their rights. So again, it's the personal conduct guideline. The following disqualifier can be used: adverse information in adjudicative areas not sufficient for adverse determination under any other guideline. So if someone, the auditor, the DOD just reads what you read on posting or whatever and just determines, hey, I don't know their background enough. I don't know that they're a good person, but from what I can tell, this isn't okay. I'm going to yank their clearance. They've got the right to do that. So be aware, be sensitive, and just use common sense, where you can. So, okay. Let me just go through a couple of comments here. Trace veneer, why not have it on carrier's edge for 1 month? Yeah, the sensitivity training, that might not be a bad idea. But again, I don't like to overwhelm. The carrier's edge is required, and so we don't want to overwhelm. Hey, you do this, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that, type of thing. But we're going to make it available, and let's see where it goes from there, Tracy. But that's a good suggestion. Joseph Lapuma, if you take a picture of an outside area that is well-known historical monument or city, when are we allowed to share it? So, my understanding is that 10 days, you're safe to share a lot of things, there. Okay. The fact that you state, that, hey, I'm in, in Joplin, Missouri is not a big deal. But when you couple that, yeah, I just picked up a load of XYZ from McAllister base, and now I'm headed to that's when you've got issues, especially when it's in real time, there. But I don't recall exactly when we do have a recommended delay, and it's several days. It may just be a couple of 3 days, but I've also seen documentation that says 10 days, is a safe time to share, what was, sensitive information prior. Rosa Charles, I wouldn't list where I work for everyone to see. Again, that's up to your own individual, determination. I mean, I'm proud of where I work. Most of you are proud of where you work, and so, just because you don't list, your place of employment doesn't give you carte blanche to, to say whatever you want, as well. It doesn't, for the DOD, auditors or, whoever is monitoring that kind of stuff, they know whether you got a clearance or not, so just be aware of that. Suzanne, favor frustrating times, but we need to step up, team at TSMT. Suzanne, I appreciate that, but I want to reinforce, guys, we do really, really good work, and it's much like the hazmat, we do 4,000 hazmat loads a month, and we have 2 or 3 violations, and it just, kills our score. We're almost perfect, in hazmat, percentage wise, we're 99.89% or whatever, but that's, but we almost have to be perfect there. And unfortunately, in this sort of thing, this is not something, that's, company wide. We've got a problem of systemic, racism, of hate language, and so forth. But there are, individual things that I've seen that have been sent to me, that is not okay. So again, so oftentimes the message is, hey, we're all screwing up and we all got to do better. That's not the message. We have a good company, and the company is made up of really good people, which I value and appreciate, and appreciate being able to work with each of you. But we do just need to manage our frustrations and be aware, of where we have the slippery slope of things that just are not appropriate. Joseph Lapuma, media manager. Yeah, there's several ways that we can, certainly get that out there. Suzanne, along with sensitivity training, diversity, cultural training is needed, for some, and you're absolutely right on that. And our HR is building those programs, and and we'll get those, distributed as well. Chris Woodard, I've been waiting longer than 90 days for my full clearance. Who do I connect to who do I connect to see why it's taking so long? So that's a good question that comes up, so just a couple of things. Be aware, Tri-State Roadmaster Group, we don't have anything to do with whether you get a clearance or not, or how long it takes, or doesn't take. We are simply the sponsor, of your clearance, and just kind of tell you how the sausage is made a bit. Once we sponsor and someone has sent in their SF-86 application, then the supervisor, and typically for drivers it'll come to Andy. The DoD will send a form letter that basically says, hey, is this an employee? Are they in good standing? Are you aware of certain things and attributes? And would you recommend this person for a security clearance? And so once we submit that, I our part is largely done. we've had situations. I mean, we have drivers getting interim clearance, really quickly. I mean, before they even leave orientation right now. We also have some that are taking weeks and months, to even get an interim clearance. It's not unusual for an interim clearance to happen, and then there be a significant delay for your full clearance, while they're continuing, the full process. A friend of mine, was an attorney for the DSS, and he told me at one time they were backed up like 700,000 applications. So I don't know, they're going through that process pretty quickly, and this is probably 18 months ago or so. So I don't know, how backed up they are, right now. But an interim clearance allows you to do everything you can with a full clearance. It just simply means that they haven't completed your investigation yet. If you have issues or challenges, getting that investigation completed, our recommendation is that you get your local congressman or senator involved. That's what they're there to do. Tell them, hey, my job, is impacted or influenced by my ability to get and hold a secret clearance. I can't get information, on it, and so, I'm your constituent. Please get involved. Please help me. And we've had success in, several of our, employees, and not, I mean, one in particular was an office, person. It took several years, for them to be able to get a clearance, and was able to do so with the help of their congressman, type of thing. So our involvement on that is pretty limited, but get your local congressman or senator involved, and that sounds like a complete overreaction or whatever, but that's where they're there. Use them. I mean, that's why you pay the taxes. Pay their salaries there. So okay, let me catch up on questions here. Tracy Veneer, my profile on Facebook has only my phone and B-Day, nothing else. I don't need to know the world knowing where I work or I've worked, or, again, how you manage your information, that's up to you guys, and everything. Once again, it's, being, private does not, make you, absolved for, things that you post, so. Donna Brown, Nevada now requires all to wear a mask in public. Yes. So yeah, once again, if you have to wear a mask, wear a mask. It looks like we're getting to more general questions here. So let me get back to the driver dashboard. I apologize, I forgot who asked about that, but someone asked about driver dashboards. We are testing a couple of pieces of technology right now. And internally, the operations group is using called a dashboard that just summarizes and gives information quicker and easier. Okay, that information is going to dovetail with the driver mobile app that we're also testing. Okay, and so I think we have 20 drivers that is testing this mobile app. Chris Stevens and I were just working on it, the last couple of days, here, that we hope to have, to all of you very soon. And what this mobile app will have, is, you can send in your drive axle and your bill of ladings and all that kind of stuff, but it has more information than that. It's going to be able to give you an idea of how you are, compared to other drivers in the fleet, payroll wise, mileage wise, idle time, safety, measures, your CSA scores, speed, all of those kind of things, where you just have more information that's summarized about yourself, and how you compare with your peers, there. I mean, it's, and so, the operations group is testing, their internal dashboards. And so they have access to information now that before, we'd have to run a, 15-minute report and then filter it and move a bunch of things in Excel just to get one piece of information. The IT group has been building a pretty cool, product that would allow us to get that information quicker, but more importantly, give, each of you drivers that information as well. I mean, it's, again, our goal is to be as transparent as we can. And too many companies, and I think personally one of the shortages of the industry is that there is a schism between office and they get certain information, and drivers, and they're not allowed to get certain information. We want to share as much information as we possibly can, to each of you. Some of you guys are going to ignore the information. Some of you guys are going to take that information, and help yourself and improve your, metrics, or improve your income, or improve whatever, that you have there. But it also gives you a better idea of how you compare, to other drivers and to the fleet, and everything, so when we're saying, hey, your service failures is too high, you understand what that means, type of thing. If we talk to you about, hey, your overspeed, numbers are way higher than normal. You understand, relative to your peers and coworkers, where you are on that. But it also lets you know what, it gives you positive affirmation too. I'm in the top, 3%, the company in miles driven. I'm in the top, 10%, total income. I'm in the top, 20%, of idle, the time, or whatever, and so that information, is there for improvement, but also self affirmation, there. So when you hear about the driver dashboard, that's what's going on there. Internally, it gives us better information, and then that same information is going to be shared with each of you, as well. I don't know, have a timeline of when this is going to be rolled out, the driver mobile app, and everything. But my guess is probably in the next 30 to 60 days. I mean, we're making pretty good progress, on it. But we're going to have much more information on it, for sure. So anyway, okay, let me get caught up on comments here real quickly. New York has 14-day quarantine and hotspots, $10,000 fine. How does that work for us? Okay, so the tri-state area, which is, not to be confused as tri-state, the trucking company, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, has put in, if you're from a certain state, then you have to quarantine for 14 days. In Arizona and Texas and Florida, or some of those hotspot days. But commercial drivers, while you're on, tri-state business, you are essential, critical, work, so you're exempt from that. Okay. If you're on home time and then you're traveling on home time, business, then you are not exempt from those quarantine rules and regulations. But while you're in the truck, while you are doing tri-state work, your commercial, drivers, are essential, and you're exempt, from those quarantine rules, and so forth. So, um, okay, Chris Woodard got my intern clearance right away. Ginger, 7 months for Daniel to get his full. Like I said, each person's different. Whatever the investigation process is for the clearance process, will vary. I mean, we've seen some drivers get, their full clearance in a month. We've seen others take 2 or 3 years. And so there is no real, rhyme or reason that I've been able to see. But like I said, we have limited, influence on that. Really work with your local congressman or senator there. My husband, Dave Mullen, and I, hey, David, find Tri-State to be professional and fantastic. PJ Mulford, PJ, thank you so much for that. I mean, it's or Pamela, no, David, I consider a friend. He and I don't talk much, but he and I have known each other for probably 6 years now. And so David's tremendous. I mean, it's and I'm proud to work with David. Donna Brown, the virus is causing slowdown to get. And I'm not sure what the rest of that question is. Yeah, I'm sorry, Kathleen Burrell, the driver scorecard. So I hope I answered that question about the driver scorecard for you. There it's the scorecard. Part is again, it's more of a dashboard and more related to the scorecard will be just so you'll be able to compare yourself, to the rest of the fleets, type of thing. Mike Sobieski, can you please put out a list of all states requiring face masks? Mike, that changes, on a day to day and week to week basis. So that's really would not be a value. But even within the state, the state of Arizona does not require a face mask, but Phoenix and Maricopa County does. So the best I can tell you is just carry a face mask with you. I mean, it's and if you see, everybody, out, fuel islands and restaurants and everything wearing a face covering, you probably should as well. I mean, but yeah, it just be impossible for us to keep up with all the, townships and municipalities and everything else that require face masks. Donna Brown, West Coast states require Nevada, California, Washington. Again, I live here in Arizona. The state of Arizona does not require it, but counties and certain towns within Arizona do require, face masks. So that's my best advice. Carry one with you. Just keep it in your pocket, type of thing. Hi, Brian. Gary Ruth, theirs took 2 years, right? My state, Sir Mark Draco, my state you live in, U.S. under them quarantine rules. What do I do? Just going home. I guess I'm not certain what you're asking, there. But again, while you're working, you're largely exempt from, the quarantine rules and everything as an essential worker and employee. When you're on home time, when you're not working, then you would be required to follow those guidelines, there. David Ransom, he's one of the drivers that's testing the driver app. So far, the driver app looks good. Thanks, David, for that. Again, there should be some other updates that are coming, from there. So David Ransom probably knows more about the driver app than I do right this minute because he's one of our testers. Heather Vance, how did we find out who our local congressman is? Our address is now Oklahoma since we're owner operators. You can Google it. And there is I don't remember the .gov websites, but just Google, your zip code and your local congressman, and Google will have that information for you. Gary Ruth, just smart to wear a mask regardless. And again, it's not to get engaged in the politics of that, there. Hi, Melissa Metcalf, Donna. Trudy, hi Trudy. Missouri doesn't require a mask, but Casey and St. Louis does. But yeah, so once again, it's not necessarily state by state, but local municipalities, counties, within that. So, yeah, Brian, what suggestions do you have for drivers visiting our multiple terminal driver lounges since COVID-19 is flaring back up? So again, two things, and Trudy would be a great one to help, answer that. Social distance, okay? I mean, it's, here in Arizona, restaurants are open, but, and they feel like they can do that, through social distance. Obviously, you can't eat with a mask on, so if you cannot social distance, then wear a mask. And just to be clear, what a mask does and does not do, as I understand it, is, the mask does not protect you necessarily. What the mask can do is to help protect, your, for lack of a better word, you're spitting, but it's vapors and droplets from dispersing as far and as wide as they normally would. Much of that's going to get caught into the mask, there. So again, I understand there's concerns with those with asthma, whether you should wear a mask and all of those kind of things. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not, trying to engage into those, if then scenarios, type of thing. If your local municipality or wherever you happen to be requires a mask, or a customer, you got to wear one. But if you're in the the lodges or the terminals or whatever, my recommendation is to talk 6, 7, 8, 10 feet away from each other. But if you can't, if you have to get with the shop person or something like that, and you guys have to get shoulder to shoulder to look at something, wear a face covering, and ask the other person to wear a face covering if they're going to get that close, because again, you wearing a face covering may not protect yourself, but it can, and there's science to suggest that you are protecting, the other person, so that would be my recommendation, Brian, there. And then once again, use hand sanitizers and everything. Trudy, writes everything down, way more often, than I suspect, most other places do, but those are our best defense right now. Okay. Um, Alan, it's good to have you back. There, Heather, the reason I ask, I can call the one where my son lives at his house since he's a friend of my family. Would that work? The congressman, my guess is that, any congressman can get involved, but but they're probably going to be more sympathetic to you, if you are their constituent. But I don't really have good advice from that. I would just use whatever resource that you have, for sure. Okay. It's Trudy. I keep hand sanitizer in the lounge, and we practice social distancing to a point, fist bumps and air hugs. Again, I mean, it's we keep talking about the 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet, and sometimes you forget, or sometimes it's not practical, or whatever. It's you know, what we're trying to do is, if there's 100 instances where you could potentially, contaminate somebody, if we eliminate down to 50 or eliminate down to 25, we're not perfect, but we're at least eliminating opportunities, for transference, and that's the best that we can do, and just try to keep doing that. Okay. Anyway, I think we're pretty much caught up on questions and comments, guys. We appreciate all of you. I mean, it's this is a heavy time. This is a very oppressive time. Take time for mental health and take time for emotional health. When you go home, spend the time you can with your family, and your loved ones. When you're out on the road. I mean, we have a lot of drivers that just refuse to take home time. More than months out. I, I don't like that right now. I mean, if you take home time every six, weeks, consider going home every 4 or 5 weeks. Now I think we're going to need a bunch of you guys for the 4th of July weekend next month. I think we got some stuff coming up next week, but take care of your emotional mental health and take care of each other. I appreciate you, and yeah, we'll get through this together. So thanks everybody. Have a great weekend.